Sometimes there's just a clear dividing line. Let's take a quick walk down Sunsoft's previous releases. Super Arabian, Route 16 Turbo, Iki, Atlantis no Nazo, Tokaido Goju Sansugi, Wing of Medulla, Fantasy Zone, we're getting a little bit better, Mito Koman, Shanghai, Ripple Island, actually good, and then Metafight. How could this have come out of a company whose output to this point literally defined kusoge, the Japanese term for crappy game? Sunsoft will make some missteps after this, but the majority of the games that they produce from this point on are all-time classics. The full title of the game is Chou-Wakusei Senki Metafight. It's one of those confusing Japanese titles that doesn't actually mean a whole lot. You could translate it as Record of the Incredibly Beguiling Stars Metafight. I'm not really sure that conveys any information though. The story in the video game is that the third planet in the Sophia star system has been invaded. Scientists on the space station Nora invent a weapon to counteract the invaders, the tank Metal Attacker. They select 15-year-old Kane Gardner to pilot it. If you're wondering who the woman on the box and label is, so were Japanese players. Other information revealed that she was Jennifer Cornett, the 17-year-old inventor of the Metal Attacker. Metafight consists of 8 interconnected areas that you drive your tank through, and generally speaking, your goal is to locate and defeat a boss. That'll get you another upgrade for the tank, and that upgrade will let you get to a new area. The areas are sprawling platforming mazes. The later areas of the game consist of many interconnected rooms that you have to navigate, and you are allowed to double back to areas that you've already visited. The Metal Attacker can jump when you press the A button, shoots when you press B, and it can also fire upward when you hold up. You can also collect power-ups that will give you a secondary weapon. Hit select to bring up this screen that shows you what you have. The 3 options at the bottom are the different weapons. You're mainly going to want to use these alternate weapons for enemies that are difficult to hit, like these worms. You fire the special weapon by holding down and pressing B. The homing missiles aren't a bad choice, though the ammo tends to be limited and you fire 1 missile for every enemy on the screen. The lightning is a little bit more common, but it's also effectively useless. There's a random element in where it hits, so if you try to take out enemies as you're jumping over them, you'll often find yourself getting hit by the enemies instead. The triple missile isn't bad. A nice fire and forget option, though it does use 3 ammo every time you shoot it. Sometimes as you're exploring, you'll find these doors that are just too small to get Metal Fighter through. When you encounter those, hit select to have Kane pop out and walk around. Kane is pretty useless on the side-scrolling segments, and he'll die if he falls too far. What Kane can do is go into those doors, and you do that by pressing down. Inside it switches to an overhead view. Here the B button shoots Kane's main gun, and the A button throws out some grenades. Some of the terrain is destroyable, and you'll generally want to shoot all of it because it can hide power-ups. Kane and Metal Attacker each have their own health bar. It's the POW meter, and getting Ps will refill that. H's give the Metal Attacker some additional hover ability, something that you'll have to defeat a boss to use. Then there's the 3 things you collect for secondary weapons. You'll often find those in the overhead mazes. So even though the mazes don't always have a boss in them, you still might want to go in to get some power-ups. And then there's the gun icon. This builds up the gun meter for Kane. And each level of gun changes his primary weapon. The first few levels of it just extend the range of his basic attack. Then the next few add curved shots that shoot out. These are generally pretty annoying to have. The final levels make your shots go an enormous wave in front of you. Though as a consequence of this, sometimes you can't hit what's directly in front of you. When Kane gets hurt, he loses 1 point of POW and 1 point of gun. Gun points are a lot rarer than power, and that makes getting damaged as Kane really annoying. The bosses in Metafight are all fought in the overhead view, and they tend to be pretty mean. They move fast and have some really tough to dodge attacks. Fortunately, you can cheat. On stages 2, 4, 6, and 7, there's a bug with the boss. If you throw a grenade and then pause the game right as the boss takes damage, the grenade continues to explode and the boss keeps getting hurt. That can work against you though. If you're taking damage when you pause, you can keep getting hurt. Defeating the boss gets you a power-up for Metal Fighter. The first one is just a key that lets you into the underground lair. The second one is an upgrade to the main cannon so that it can destroy some blocks. And that's as far as I got because, well, I didn't remember the map very well. I spent a bit of time in Area 2 going around in circles. One of the big complaints about Metafight is that it's a very long game, but there's no password system. You have to beat it in one sitting. On the other hand, they do give you unlimited continues. That was changed in the US version, which I think marks the first time we've seen things altered from the Famicom version in order to combat the US rental market. And speaking of that US version, Metafight wasn't very popular in Japan upon release, though it gained a reputation for being one of the system's hidden gems. What it's really known for in Japan is how different the US version is. The US game is the story of a boy chasing down his mutated frog. And in Japan, the strange differences between versions became so well known that they wound up adopting the Blaster Master name for the franchise there. There are a surprising number of sequels to Metafight, most notably the Blaster Master Zero games, which are really good. As for our one and only Metafight game on the Famicom, it's considered a classic for a reason. It's not flawless. For example, I really don't like going down vertical areas in this since you don't have a great view. And it might be a bit too big and open for its own good. And boy, those bosses sure are tough. But this is one of the peak Famicom games. The music's amazing, the first but far from the last time Sunsoft is going to knock it out of the park with the music. The action flows so well too, and I even think that the Famicom version's better than the NES one. This is what 8-bit gaming is all about.